7 of the high school football season is upon us, and welcome into the newest edition of the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy, and thank you all for listening or watching us wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and check us out on YouTube just simply by looking up Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on this video, comment who you would want to hear from throughout the rest of the season moving forward as we head into the winter sports season. And believe me, driving into work today, it was cold. And I just know one thing, the winter sports season is almost here. And as always, we're excited to give you guys full in-depth coverage from start to finish. So again, let's get rolling here. And let's kind of start with the player of the week. Last week, we had Malachi Hope from Riverside as our player of the week for week 6 of the high school, well, week 5, I should say, for the high school football season. But the player of the week for week 6 of the high school football season is none other than Tug Valley's Preston May, the quarterback for the Panthers. He went for 14 of 28 passing, so 50% through the air, 238 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, and he also carried the ball 8 times for 29 yards in Tug Valley's victory over Tulsa last week. Tug Valley also will have their first home game of the season, surprisingly enough, as we are already at week 7. Tug Valley will have its first home game of the regular season this Friday night. So congratulations to Preston on earning the Week 6 Player of the Week. And coming up in the past, we've done 2 interviews before on this show. If you remember a couple weeks ago, we talked with Barry Clendenin, the head volleyball coach at Buffalo, and John Carpenter, the head football coach at Capital. Well, we're going to do 2 interviews today as well. Coming up in our next segment, we're going to be joined by the head girls soccer coach up at Charleston Catholic, head coach Amy Mullen. We'll talk with her. They are going for their 6th straight Class AA/A state title. So we'll talk with her about this season. And then following that, we will be chatting with the head football coach of the Huntington Highlanders, head coach Billy Seals. They've had a great start. They've made the state semifinals in Class AAA the last couple of years, including making it all the way to the state championship and winning it just a few years ago. So we'll talk with Coach Seals about his team this year, including Avante Crawford, Tavion Wilson, and WVU commit Zaw Jackson. So a lot to get into. In the last segment, we'll also discuss the stats leaders from Week 6 of the high school football season, and I will give my picks as well. This is the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook, and we will be chatting with the girls' head soccer coach, Charleston Catholic, head coach Amy Mullen.
From middle school, I remember having a conversation with my sister and telling her that I wanted to be a counselor.
The passion's always there to help someone who's vulnerable and help someone who needs a little guidance along the way.
I try to find things in common with them. A lot of times for me, it can be anything from not dressing up to just, like I said, meeting them where they're at. Literally, that's our motto. We meet you where you are.
My energy is just, I try to make it feel so welcoming.
I think the big thing with me is it's always what's in the best interest of the client.
I try to be very open-minded. This is whatever you need, I'm here to help you with.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy. Thank you all for joining me, however you may be listening or watching this program. Today, we are pleased to be joined by the 5-time defending state champs of Charleston Catholic High School, the girls soccer team, head coach Amy Mullen. Coach, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Gosh, it's pretty exciting to get to be on this program.
Well, thanks for joining us. You guys have, again, 5-time state champion. You guys are trying to go for the 6th one this season. What's this season been like for you guys?
It's been a pretty good season. Our numbers are down. We have 17 on the roster. We have 2 that can't play. One at ACL not playing. We played a couple games. Some people were injured. We're skinny. This is back to when I first started in 2012 of the players that we have. But the good thing is I do have a good group of players that play travel and play a high level of travel.
So when you kind of mix this group together and you start mixing the upperclassmen with the younger group, what are you kind of liking about what you've seen thus far in this season?
Well, first of all, the freshmen have really come in and helped. Molly Messer has a younger sister, Abby Messer, and she is able to just jump in and play. Lauren Lauren has also been a great add in the back. Truthfully, this is the first time that I've had to really talk about building our defense. You know, Molly Weber is a junior. She's one that went to the national tournament in the summer, and she is a great defender. And I've never had to really fill in the pieces, and we're having to fill it in and work hard to try to build a new defense.
So along that line, you mentioned the defensive side of things, but what's been the strength of this team? Has it been more the offense, the defense, with so many players returning that were veterans, or what's been the strength?
Well, yes, veteran players that continue to play travel, and truthfully, these girls, they are very technical. They have great skill, great passing, good communications, and they've grown. You know, I am surprised too when I see them play. I'm like, wow, you guys are really good. You know, they're moving the ball, they're talking. I just think they've all kind of grown a year, gotten stronger, gotten better. You know. But, you know, we're pretty technical.
You mentioned the communication side of things. How important is that whenever you try and mix your veteran group with your younger players? You mentioned your freshman class, but how do you kind of start identifying the communication and working on that as well?
It's real important at the beginning of the season to go through your goals and to see what you have to do, because every year's different. You're just not sure what's going to happen, what your weaknesses are, where you're going to go. And it's real important to me that I match up seniors with freshmen, and they take care of each other. They work together, and you know, we do buddy systems so that, you know, they get to know each other, and it's real important. And the seniors that I have now, I always say, remember the seniors when you were freshmen, how well they took care of you? You all need to do that. So, you know, it's just, you know, grooming them and knowing that they feel comfortable and confident with this group.
I mentioned 5-time state champion. You guys are going for 6. AA/A in soccer is really good in this state, and has been for the last couple of years. But what's it going to take for you guys to get back to the state tournament, but then also try and win your 6th straight?
To get better every day. Every day. You have to come out here and get better every day and be able to learn something new, and you can't get complacent. You can't take it for granted that it's going to be there, because, you know, I've gone to the state tournament thinking we would probably pull this out, and we haven't, you know. And to me, it's nice to be able to go, you guys, I've been here, I've seen this. Like, we don't want it taken away from us. And, you know, it's valuable. To get to go there is something special, and, you know, don't take it for granted.
Again, you've done this for a number of years. You first started at Charleston Catholic back in 2012. I mentioned you guys have won the last 5 state titles. What's the championship pedigree, or what's the championship identity or MO that you guys have to kind of mold each year to try and replicate recent success? Yeah,
gosh, that's tough. You know, truthfully, I feel very fortunate that most of these girls have grown up in this area, and that they have been trained by the travel trainers with Ashley Wood, Adam Arthur, Kim D'Angelo. You know, it's so nice that we have those resources available. And I feel like the more the girls are wanting to do that and to do it off season, it certainly helps the fall.
You mentioned the trainer and the training side of things. You have also mentioned the club sports side of things. Talk about just girls soccer in totality here in the state of West Virginia. How have you kind of seen girls soccer, or even soccer for that matter, grow here in the Mountain State?
I've seen it grow a lot. I moved here in '94, and I helped at GW, and it was still a club sport. And then I moved away and came back, and a lot of the teams were co-ed, and they were still co-ed, and then it was all one division. It wasn't triple, double, single. And it's nice now that we do have enough teams to play single, double, but I do worry, because now you see a couple of the girls' teams that are going co-ed. You know, I think, I don't know if that's population or people going towards volleyball. I do think it's somewhat cyclical, but, you know, this first year we had that travel team, the 06-07, that went to the national tournament. I mean, we've never seen that. That was big,
right.
You know, and we get to have the President's Cup here too. Yeah. And those girls all like to be able to play for that and to be here. So I think West Virginia's trying, and our facilities are great. You know, Shawnee's good, almost everything's turfed. Things are growing. Yeah,
Schoenbaum as well, as we're here at Schoenbaum at Coonskin Park. I mean, what a beautiful facility this is as the boys team's practicing right now. The fall, I think especially, I've covered games here, and the fall here is just picturesque in a sense. But kind of talk about how you've grown over these 12, 13 years that you've been the coach at Charleston Catholic. How are you different going into this season compared to where you were back in 2012?
You always have something to learn. I mean, you always have something to learn. You need to, always doing research. What are people doing? What kind of formation are they playing? You always have to make it different and make sure that the girls enjoy it, and sportsmanship, and that they treat each other well. My biggest thing is I want them all to enjoy it, love being here, and then the rest just starts to happen. They work hard for each other. But I just think if you're not continuing to learn, then you're in trouble.
A couple more before we talk about some of your players.
Okay.
The relationship side of things with you and your players. How important is that? How important is that to you as a coach to kind of be able to establish and create relationships with these young women?
It's real important. Of all the years I've done it, all three of my kids came through here, and it was always nice having them. People would say, "I can't believe you're coaching your kids. How do you like that?" And I was like, "I hadn't been a big deal," but they always call me by my first name. They call me Amy, which is fine. And we couldn't talk on the field. And now these last few years that I don't have any kids, it's harder because you really don't know what's going on, and nobody wants to tell the coach too much. So I have to make the effort to get to know them, and we have to work on this together. And I think to me these last few years that's been something new, that I've had to try to make relationships with these girls. Other than when they're my kids, we see them all the time. Now I've got to make an effort.
Let's talk about a couple of your players, and we'll start with Molly. You mentioned her on the defensive side of things. What's different about her this season compared to where she was in her first 2 years?
Molly Weber.
Yeah.
She's grown. She's gotten smarter. She's gotten to play a lot more with her travel. The first 2 years here, she was a freshman, and she always had somebody, kind of telling her what to do. And now it's all her, and she's doing a great job, and she's doing a great job communicating with the new defenders that we have, and teaching them, shape and when to go and pressure cover, and she's doing a great job.
Mia Lowe, obviously committed to WVU recently for the women's soccer team.
Yeah.
Talk about her. How important has she been to this Charleston Catholic girls soccer program since you've been here?
Oh, just the energy, the skill, everything has been. I feel very fortunate that I've gotten to be with her. I had always thought that she would never play high school soccer and she'd go somewhere else. And, I have learned a lot from her, being able to, she works effortlessly, and she works really hard. And, the connection between she and Aurelia and Molly Messer, is pretty dynamic. It is really dynamic. And they, when they start connecting, nobody can stop them. They really are pretty to watch.
As a coach, whenever you're able to learn things off of your players, does that kind of help you grow more as a coach? And what's that like for you? Oh,
like I said, if you're not willing to learn and to grow, you're in trouble. Because, she travels all over and trains with all kinds of people. And, it's nice to hear the things that she has to say. And with that being said, all of them. Aurelia's doing the same thing. Molly Messer's done the same thing. They are all, and Ella Green, they're all coached all over the country. And so, when they have something to say, you got to listen.
And then finally, kind of open up the depth chart a little bit. Who's been a couple of players, or a player for that matter, that has really impressed you from where you guys started in the off season to where we are today?
Lauren, my freshman player, Lauren has done a great job. At first, she was a little scared and timid, but, she's been able to come in and really fight. We also have had, and Stella Bailey, she's done a great job too, because she didn't get to play much these last 2 years. I had 9 graduate. The year before that, I had 11 graduate. And Stella has also come in and worked pretty hard. We've been fortunate to pick up Rachel Lowe just when she can be there, and she's a great player too. So my freshmen have done a good job.
Well, Coach, good luck the rest of the way. We hope to see you down in Beckley again this year, and we'll talk soon.
Me too. Thank you.
That is Coach Amy Mullen, the head soccer coach of the girls soccer program here at Charleston Catholic High School. We'll be right back here, and we'll talk with Billy Seals, the head football coach of the Huntington Highlanders, after this break.
From middle school, I remember having a conversation with my sister and telling her that I wanted to be a counselor.
The passion's always there to help someone who's vulnerable and help someone who needs a little guidance along the way.
I try to find things in common with them. A lot of times for me, it can be anything from not dressing up to just, like I said, meeting them where they're at. Literally, that's our motto. We meet you where you are.
My energy is just, I try to make it feel so welcoming.
I think the big thing with me is it's always what's in the best interest of the client.
I try to be very open-minded. This is whatever you need, I'm here to help you with.
Welcome back into the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy, and we are pleased to be joined by the head football coach of the Huntington Highlanders, head coach Billy Seals. Coach, welcome to the program.
Thanks, guys.
First time on the program. How's the season going for you guys?
Well, we've had a good run. I mean, we've through 5 games, we're 4-1. Have gotten better each and every week. That's the biggest thing we look for. And we're not the same team we were week 1, and I think we've improved in all 3 phases of the game.
Talk about the first half of the season. I mean, obviously a lot of growing points. You got a lot of new guys thrown into the mix. But what have you learned about your team in the first half of the season?
Well, we're becoming better competitors. Learning to compete in practice, so we're becoming more physical. Early in the year we were doing a little bit too much reaching on defense, but we're continuing to get better there, and especially defense. When we had to replace 7 3-year starters off last year's team, so we knew there were going to be some growing pains there on the defensive side of the ball. But I think offensively we just continue to get better and find things that we do well, and just continuing to be able to run the football well. Avante's done a great job distributing the ball, and we haven't really been full strength since week 2, so it's great to get Tavion and those guys back.
You talked about throwing some new guys into the mix. You mentioned the stat of 7 3-year starters are now gone, but what have you kind of seen from the guys that have stepped up and have really taken over those roles that were open during the offseason?
Yeah, you take a guy like Jamari Tubbs, who's moved over and played some defense here the last couple of weeks, plays really well. Elias King, who's a sophomore, is continuing to get better. Bryce Winkfield and Landon Miller have provided good leadership at our Mike linebacker position. Keegan can play anywhere you put him. He's just a football player. And then, guys up front, Max Bourne, a kid that started for us last year, is playing real well. Finally got him back from injury. So, some of those guys who have been out, we're just trying to get them, reacclimated to football and the physicality of it and being able to run, because we had a lot of guys with ankle issues.
Let's talk about that Martinsburg game from week 2. What did you kind of learn about your team going up against a team like Martinsburg?
We realized real quick we got a long ways to go. I told our team after that game I was disappointed on how we played, and but if you want to look at what a championship program looks like, you played against it tonight. And so on that night we're not in the same conversation based on that night. But I like where we're at. I think we continue to get better each and every week, and I knew that was going to be a tough game week 2 just due to our inexperience.
When you play a team like Martinsburg in week 2, would you kind of consider it a wake-up call just in regards of your guys seeing, like you mentioned, a championship team? If you want to play the best of the best, you have to beat them, and that was a really good wake-up call for you guys that early?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, our first week, we play Hurricane, who's really good, and I was upset about giving up 35 points, and then you look at all the points they put up against everyone else, and I'm like, hey, we played pretty good that night. But, going to Martinsburg, we knew it was going to be a tough game, and we're not ducking anybody. I mean, we play, if we're going to play Martinsburg, we'll play anybody. So, a 6-hour trip to play a regular season game, that was kind of difficult, to be honest with you, traveling early that morning, playing the game and getting back on the bus. But I like our football team. I like what we've been able to accomplish the first 5 games, and just continue to pound the rock and continue to get better each day.
What do you want to see from your team the second half of the season?
Just continued improvement. Offensively, again, find some things that we continue to do well. I think we've ran the football really well this year. We got guys all over the field. Last week we felt like that Tavion was kind of high load and doubled in the slot. Well, now you're going to leave Stix Chandler and Jamari Tubbs one-on-one and Zaw Jackson. So it's kind of, pick your poison, I guess. If you're going to load the box, it's a numbers game. You look at football, it's about how many guys are in the box. And so just continue to get better there. And then defensively, continue to be physical, make plays, continue to increase the turnover margin, which we've done a good job over the last 3 weeks.
You talk about your offense. You return your quarterback, running back, and your tight end and Tavion. They can move just about anywhere on the field. But having those 3 guys back and you guys continuing to improve, you mentioned Tavion and Chandler as well. But for your offense, what's different about your offense this season compared to last year?
I think, number one, I think we're probably better up front than we were last year, in my opinion, as far as across the board. I think all all 5 guys have good chemistry. We feel like we have great depth on the offensive line. We've probably got 8 or 9 guys that we feel good can play. So that's an improvement. And I think at the receiver spot, we still got good depth. Dre Reese has come in and played really well in the slot and has given us some minutes. Ethan Dalton's played well at receiver. So we just continue to find guys that are making plays on Friday night for us.
What's the general theme? When I mean theme is, are you seeing the brotherhood or the camaraderie be a big difference from last year, or what's the general theme that you're seeing with this year's group?
Well, I think, in our program and the consistency we've had being really good, they genuinely love one another. They love being around each other. They love practice. They love the locker room and locker room talk and, joking around and things like that. So I think, just our team chemistry is really good. We've done a great job of when you have so many guys that can be explosive with the football in their hands, we've been able to really pound home it's a team game. We don't worry about how many touches. No college coaches ever came and asked how many touches he got Friday night. You do great things when you do get touches.
When you talk about Tavion, obviously he had the big field goal block in week 1 against Hurricane. You mentioned how he's been battling a little bit of an injury, but in regards to him, what's different about him from at this point where he is this season compared to this point last season?
I think his understanding of football. You look at this point last season, he was a backup. He was playing behind Wayne Harris, who's, to me, one of the best wide receivers to come through the state. And, so he was a backup, and that's hard to believe. Unfortunately, Wayne goes down with an injury. Tavion gets better as the year goes on, but has really played well for us. This season continues to become more physical. He's got great hands. His understanding concepts of route running has increased. So, I think the sky's the limit for him. He continues to improve, and a great young man to be around, more importantly.
You talk about Avante Crawford. He replaced Gavin Lonko last season. Now he's back for his second full season at quarterback. When you have a guy like Avante that was able to learn from a guy like Gavin, how are you kind of see him learn from the past and use that towards his future?
Well, I think, what we like to do a lot of times if we have a really good young quarterback and say you have an issue like Gavin Lonko, who's the quarterback, we played Avante at safety his sophomore year. He plays safety for us this year, but really, really good. And so I think it helps him understand the quarterback position because you understand coverages, where the DB is supposed to be, where he's going to be. And I think that just helps our development of our quarterbacks. We did that with Clark Wilson. We did it with Gavin Lonko. We did it with Avante Crawford. So that's just something we kind of do just to help them better understand, the quarterback position and coverages.
That's a really interesting point because you mentioned throwing them out in the secondary. As a coach, having a guy that's able to learn the secondary as a quarterback and able to put the pieces together and be able to see different things whenever he does become the signal caller, what does that kind of show you about the player that you have whenever he goes through that?
Well, it shows his IQ is very high, to be honest with you. Shows that his attention to detail. If you look at the number of interceptions he's thrown over the last 2 years, pretty minimum, 5 or 6 maybe, and it's probably thrown for 40 touchdowns. So anytime you have that ratio of 40 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, you're doing a lot of good things, and I think a lot of that has to do with he takes what the defense gives him. He's smart with the football, doesn't try to rush anything, and makes good decisions.
When you talk about a guy like Zaw Jackson, a WVU football commit, what has he meant to this program over these last couple of seasons?
Very few kids walk in here as a 4-year starter, and not just a 4-year starter. He's going to end up being a 4-time first-team All-Stater. You have to be an elite player for that, and always has a smile on his face, loves the game, loves his teammates, probably the most unselfish guy on this football team. Could he carry it 30 times a game? Absolutely, but all Zaw cares about is winning on Friday night and understands that it's a team concept. And, I know they have the Kennedy Award. If there's a better player than Zaw Jackson in the state of West Virginia, he's not going to put the numbers up some of these guys have. But again, my old head coach in college used to tell me that stats are for losers. So it's about wins and losses.
Let's open up the depth chart a little bit. And when you start going through your guys from top to bottom, who's been a couple of guys that's impressed you, not only throughout the offseason, but now that we are heading into week 7 of the high school football season?
Well, I think Anthony Pascal, Tone Pascal, continues to get better at H-back and defensive end. Tall, long, athletic kid. Only a sophomore. Better days are ahead of him. Very athletic. Braxton Mount, another kid playing defensive end, 6'3.5", 6'4", 210 pounds. A kid, again, never played on a Friday night till against Hurricane So continues to improve. Josiah Stratton is continuing to improve on the inside. Jeremiah Lyles, another sophomore who's a two-way starter for us, continues to improve. So if you look at all those guys, our interior guys, I think, continue to excel and continue to get better each week.
When you talk about Spring Valley, I'll be wrong for not bringing up such a big matchup this weekend, especially in the tri-state area. But when you talk about Spring Valley this season, what do you see from the Timberwolves?
Well-coached football team as always. Brad Ding is a good friend of mine. They do a great job year in and year out. You look at perennial powers in this state, you have to mention Spring Valley. I don't care what classification they're in. You got to mention them. They're physical at the point of attack. They're big on the offensive line. Athletically, they're probably as good as they've been since Malashevich's group was there back in 2017. So really good quarterback play. Always fundamentally sound on defense. They do a lot of things on the back half, secondary-wise. And so we got to be in tune to what we're seeing and how we attack that.
When you talk about their offense, obviously they've been traditionally known as a run it down your throat, run offense kind of team. But when you go up against a team like that likes to run the ball so much, how do you kind of go about it from a schematic standpoint of slowing them down? Well,
I think you got to win first down. If they've got you in 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, that's a win for them every time. So you got to put them in 2nd and 8 or longer situations. They've went a little more of the spread attack this year, but they're very efficient in it, run a lot of power. Their H-back's really good. 22, the running back, runs very physical. Probably, I would say, one of the top 2 or 3 backs we've seen up to this point, so he's really good. And so just what they do, they're just sound. I mean, they're well coached and they're good at what they do.
Let's spend the last couple of minutes and talk about this playoff system. I mean, obviously, I look at teams like you all and George Washington, just to name a couple, that some of the teams on your schedule drop down a classification and it hurt the point system. But from your perspective, how do you kind of go about approaching that? I mean, how do you look now into the future if this is to stand and there are 16 teams in Class Quad A? How do you kind of go about that from a scheduling perspective?
Well, I think for us, we're going to have to reach out and start scheduling a little bit outside the box. I hope that they fix that point system that they currently have, and that's not the SSAC, that's the Board of Review. When they made those changes to the classifications, that's 4 opponents that we had that dropped to AAA. Well, we're being punished because they decided to drop a team from Quad A to AAA a week before the season started. And so for us, down the line, I mean, that's 12 base points that we're losing in the playoff seeding, whatever way it plays out. And there's all the projections out there, and one of the projections is there's 2 7-3 teams above us if we go 9-1, and that's a tragedy.
When you talk about 4 classes in West Virginia, I mean, obviously I know you and I have talked. You've seen a lot of football from various states, various systems, whatever it may be. Your thoughts on 4 classes in West Virginia?
I really don't think we need it in West Virginia. The only way to, in my opinion, to make it fair is if you're going to have 4 classes, you need to have 30 teams per class. 30 in quad, triple, and double, and whatever's left is in single A. That's the only way to make it fair. I mean, nobody likes that all 16 teams are getting into playoffs. So it basically makes the regular season doesn't mean as much as it used to, and so just not a fan of it. I think we're too small of a state to have 4 classifications. I think we're closer to having 2 classifications than 4, in my opinion. But it's something we got to work through this year, and maybe we go back to 3 classes next year. Or I know they got a meeting this month to talk about some things. So just not a big fan of it.
A couple more for you, and when you talk about just the layout and everything and what's changed over the last couple of months, even a couple of years for that matter, in high school sports, amongst your peers, what are you kind of hearing from them in regards to where the state of high school football is here in West Virginia?
I think it's improved. I mean, you can look at the number of guys that are getting opportunity to play college football. I think recruiting West Virginia has improved. I think our coaches in the state have done a better job with that. Social media helps, obviously, in connections. I think the state has come a long way. I remember when I first got here, you couldn't work with your kids hardly at all in the summertime. And now we've got 32 flex days where if we want to take a week and have spring practice so college coaches can view our athletes, we do that. We did that last year. We took a week and allowed coaches to come watch practice. So I think we're heading in the right direction on a lot of things in the state. It has definitely improved in the 16 years that I've been here. And again, I think we're in the right direction. We just need to fix this point point system come playoff time. It's not fair to the only teams being punished in this are MSAC teams when you look at Quad A. George Washington, Cabell Midland, Hurricane, and Huntington are the 4 teams that's being punished because they decided to drop teams down to AAA.
And finally, how are you different? You mentioned how, when you first got here into the state, things were a lot differently, but obviously you've had to have grown during that time span as well. In your first couple of years were definitely some tests along the way, but how are you different from where you were your first season to where we are now in 2024?
I'm a better coach. There's no doubt about it. When I walked in here, I was a 32-year-old. I'd been a defensive coordinator, but I'd never really called the shots. Had a lot to learn. I took a lot of things from guys I worked with in the past and used, and I learned some things not to do as well. And as a coach, you self-analyze yourself every year to what we can do better. We meet as a staff and try to improve our program. And I just think as a coach, we've continued to get better every year. We go to clinics, and we're always trying to learn and stay on top of things. The game's changed in 16 years. I mean, you watch today's game. Defense doesn't matter as much anymore. Everybody's all about offense, spread it out, score 60 a game. Old guys like myself that love defense, we're kind of a little bit dinosaurs now, but I still believe if you can run the football and play good defense, you got a chance in every game, and defense always travels. So we kind of hang our hat on that.
Well, Coach, good luck on Friday, and good luck the remainder of the season.
Thank you.
That is Coach Billy Seals of the Huntington Highlanders. Up next, I'll give you guys my predictions for high school and college football this upcoming weekend. Final segment here on the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. Special thanks to Billy Seals, the head football coach at Huntington High School, and the girls head soccer coach at Charleston Catholic, head coach Amy Mullen. But I cannot go any further until I give a huge, huge thank you to our 2 great sponsors, Mountain Care Network and 5th Street. And Mountain Care Network was designed to increase accessibility to mental health services and decrease the stigma associated with mental health treatment in West Virginia. Check them out by going to their website, mountaincarenetwork.com. That's mountaincarenetwork.com. And the fine folks over at 5th Street Brewing. 5th Street Brewing is one of the area's top local establishments for great beer and food. With 12 different beers on tap, you're sure to leave satisfied. 5th Street Brewing has a wide range of food options. And check them out by going to 180 Summer Street in Charleston. That's 180 Summer Street. And also check them out on their website, 5thstreetbrewing.com. So last week, another 500 week went mediocre again. Went 5-5. So I've gone 10-10 in the last 2 weeks. So not a great stretch here thus far, but hopefully in week 7 of the high school football season and week 6 of the college football season, we can kind of turn things around. Here are my picks for this week in football. I got George Washington over Parkersburg, Spring Valley over Huntington, South Charleston over St. Albans, Ripley over Sissonville, Scott over Logan, Ohio State over Oregon, Ole Miss over LSU, Iowa State over WVU, Marshall over Georgia Southern, and Kansas State over Colorado. So those are my picks for this week in football. Wide range of games here in the state of West Virginia. And go check us out as well on our social media pages to make sure you're keeping up to date with everything going on in high school football in the tri-state area. You can follow us on Facebook at HD Media Sports and follow us on Twitter at Gaz Mail Sports. That's G-A-Z Mail Sports. 40-yard dash this week. We were with the head football coach of the Spring Valley Timberwolves, head coach Brad Dingus. So check that out. That's where you can get anything related to us on social media. We're also on the website as well, so go check that out. And before we go any further, here are last week's, so week 6 of the high school football, the stat leaders under the HD Media umbrella.
We the best, no contest. We the best. There ain't no one like cause of you dumb or you crazy. There's no way, G. Me and my clique, we handling biz while you and your clique just act fugazi. You couldn't persuade me to give a damn, it just don't faze me. I got my Xbox, she can't play me. Money in the text box, I get paid. We the best. We the best, no contest. We the best. We the best, no contest. We the best. We the best. There ain't no rest. For the wicked I'm bad and I'm blessed. Put it to the test. For the rest there ain't no contest. So what's next? Got me leveling up, I'm obsessed. I bring the fire like I'm possessed. My personnel and my clique is the best. There ain't no contest. There ain't no one like cause of you dumb or you crazy. There's no way, G. Me and my clique, we handling biz while you and your clique just act fugazi. You couldn't persuade me.
final couple of seconds here as well. And again, big shout out as well to Mountain Care Network and 5 Street Brewing. Special thanks to the two of them. And we cannot do what we do with this program without the support of those two. Also, video producer today, Ethan Young. Special thanks to him for always being there and helping me. So I want to give a big shout out to him. And next week, we'll have another 2 interview segment. Hopefully we can get with the head football coach at Winfield, Coach Eddie Smolder, and the Hurricane boys soccer coach, Kent Bailey. So that is next week's schedule, and this is the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. Again, special thanks to Billy Seals and Amy Mullen. I will see you all next week.